Hey.
Hello. How's
Hi.
everyone? How are you? All right. I hope everybody is doing good. And let's start the class then because I got a little late today. So let's just directly dive into the class. So back neck straight. Let's close the eyes. Just observe your breath. Just keep your mind focused on the natural flow of the breath. Relax the entire body. Ensure that there is no stress in the body. To do so, just bring the mind back to the breath. Slowly begin to come into the practice of Puraka and Rechaka. Going for conscious, slow, long and deep inhalations. Conscious, slow, long and deep exhalations. Completely relax your mind. We'll be chanting Om, followed by the Shanti mantra. Exhale completely. And inhale for Om. Just feel the vibrations of the mantra. Join your two palms together and hand on the chest and rub your palms together. Come on the eyes. Very slowly unblinking and looking at the palms, open up the eyes and back with a smile. And namaste to everyone. Let's begin today's session. Okay, so we are already ahead on our pranayam journey, and now we are going to go deeper into the practices. So today we will be doing another pre-practice of pranayam, which is abdominal breathing. All right, but before that, let's just take a note of a few of the general notes I told you for a pranayam practitioner. So let's just take a few notes on that, and then we will go directly go into the practice of abdominal breathing. All right. So let me write this down in the chat box also. So general notes. So first thing, let's begin with the very basic thing, which is your breathing. Okay, so first thing is breathing. So whenever you are practicing pranayam, it is very important for you to breathe through the nose, unless and otherwise the instruction comes in that you have to breathe through the mouth. Okay, okay. I'll just put everyone on mute because some disturbance. Yeah. All right. Okay. So yeah, first thing is breathing. Unless and otherwise, the your yoga teacher or you, when you will become teachers, unless and otherwise you instruct in a particular pranayam that someone has to breathe through the mouth, all the practices have to be done with the breath going in and coming out through the nose. Okay, this is a very common error that I have seen, and you will see in a lot of pranayam practitioners, that especially for Bhramari pranayam, the bumblebee like pranayam, I will be introducing it in the future classes. So sometimes what students do is they write down the technique where they inhale through the nose and exhale out through the mouth, which is not the technique. Unless and otherwise you are instructed to breathe through the mouth. Most pranayams are done with the breathing through the nose only. Okay. Then let's come to the clothing. So also another very important point, clothing. How should the clothing of a pranayam practitioner be? So make sure, like for asanas also, like in these times, you know, a lot of tight fit clothes are coming even for yoga practitioners. So try to avoid those that kind of clothing. Try to go for loose clothing instead, and cotton made clothes are actually very good. Any natural product used to make a cloth, try to avoid synthetics where your skin cannot breathe. So always try to wear clothes which are loose, and again material of the clothes should be taken care of when you're going into combined. So even an asana, try to wear light clothing and loose clothing. That would be very helpful for you. It will greatly support your practice, right? That is another very major thing that you need to follow when you are going for pranayam practice. Okay. Let's come to the time of practice. So there are certain timings in which, you know, if you go for certain practices, they're going to give a lot of result. Even in philosophy, I will be touching upon why is a particular, you know, timing given more relevance than the other timings. I will be touching upon this. However, just a very brief, you know, for a beginner, it is good to practice either early in the morning or at the time of the sunset. These two timings are considered to be very good for pranayama practices, or in fact any yogic practice. These two timings are considered to be very good. And you know, certain pranayama practices, as we will be covering pranayama, they are also good to practice before you go to sleep. They will put your mind in a calm state so that you can easily fall into sleep. So, you know, people who suffer from insomnia or have too many thoughts when they are practicing, when they are like in their normal life, sorry. So they can use these pre-practices and practices of pranayam even before going to bed. It's going to help them to sleep. That I will cover when I cover each and every individual pranayam with you. What are the benefits which pranayam can help in which, you know, disease or which condition is that pranayam helpful in. Again, next thing that is very important for us is the place of practice. Time is also very important, place is also very important. For timing, there are certain Hatha Yogic texts in which, you know, someone who is going very deep into pranayam practice, Hatha Yogic texts also mention particular timings for a pranayam practitioner when they can practice pranayam. And for a yogi, for someone who is going very deep into the practice, 4 times in a day has been recommended. So for us, for common people, 2 times in a day is very good, and early morning and at the time of sunset. But for somebody who is doing a lot of sadhana, has left everything and only practicing Hatha Yoga, there are 4 times that are given for the yogi. But for us, it is not relevant. Okay. In case you want to read up more about it, I will be mentioning a few Hatha Yogic texts in the philosophy class. You can go ahead and read those texts. You will get proper knowledge on this thing. Okay. Next thing is place of practice. So this is also very important. You need to set up your space. First thing that I will touch upon is set up your space. Always when you are doing something in your life, you need to make sure that you set up a particular space for that thing. So that as soon as you enter that space, you are mentally prepared for your practices. Suppose you are practicing yoga, right? So asana, pranayama, all of these things. So make a particular space in your home where you are going to do all of these practices, and fix your mat also. Okay. So do not keep changing your mat again and again, and do not borrow or lend your mat to someone, right? Why? Because that mat is going to absorb your entire energy and it will become an accumulation of your practice. So it's very important that you keep your mat separate from everyone else. And try to set up a totally different space in your house, no matter where it is. It can be in your bedroom also, but that space is set up for your yoga practice. So that as soon as you go there, you know you have to practice yoga. And you know, you can be all creative about it however you want to create your space. Some people you know, like candles, some people prefer music, so you can do anything that soothes you a lot. So so that the, you know, You should feel happy when you're practicing yoga. It's not all about struggling, it's about being happy along your journey. So, whatever makes you happy, try to set up your space in that way. You can try to keep plants where you are practicing. That is one thing that will immensely support you in your pranayama practice. Why? Because the environment around us, the air around us is no more clean. We're living in a very polluted environment. So having a few indoor plants which cleanse the air and absorb the bad air. There's some, I think rubber plant is one of them. It cleanses the air around it. So you can keep a few indoor plants in your space, which will help you, especially for your breathing practices. Another very important thing is keeping that space clean. Okay, so not only are you going to set up your space, you're also going to make sure that it is clean, because if your space is not clean, it's not going to support you. Be it your asana practice or pranayama practice, any which way, make sure that the place that you are choosing, you are cleaning it every day. You clean your mat regularly. All of these things really add up to your personal practice. Again, the place in which you are practicing should also be well ventilated. So it doesn't mean that wherever you are practicing, it's just at the corner of a room and there is no ventilation over there. So there should be proper ventilation in that area. But also make sure that the area, it's a very specific spot. You will be able to find this in your home. But there's not, like, that area should not even have a gush of wind going on. So sometimes what happens is that people set up their space near the window. So even that can cause a little bit disturbance to you, especially for pranayama, because you try to focus on your breath, right? And try to work with your breath. So if a lot of wind is blowing in that area, that will also become a hindrance for you. So choose a suitable spot which is well ventilated but not overly ventilated and not under ventilated. So it's a midpoint basically that you have to choose when you're looking for your space. Okay, and make sure that actually ideally they say that even fans should not be turned on when you are practicing pranayama. So whatever the temperature of your environment is, that is sufficient for you to practice pranayama. So try to avoid AC, the use of AC or heaters even at that point of time when you're practicing pranayama. Okay, so your the temperature around you, try not to change it using artificial things like fan, even fan, AC, heaters, all of these things. Okay, so now that at least basic things are set up for us, let's come to the position. So for pranayama practice, your position, posture, posture is also very important. So for certain tree practices, we will be lying down also. There is no harm in lying down for certain tree practices, like abdominal breathing you can do while you are lying down also, right? So, however, most of the pranayams are done in a sitting posture. And it is very important for you to adopt a sitting posture. Why? Because now your entire concentration, your entire goal has changed. Right now you're working on the expansion of prana. So for that, it's very important that the energy is able to flow properly in the body. Hence, a sitting posture is recommended generally when you are doing pranayama. Do not go for any laying posture. I will be introducing practices one by one. So if somewhere there is a laying posture, I will let you know. But pranayams are mostly practiced in sitting posture where your back and neck should remain straight. So this is important. like your meditation, back neck should be straight. And you can even go for postures like, Sukhasana. Your in your meditation class, maybe you have covered this. So Sukhasana, Padmasana is also very good. Lotus pose, Padmasana is lotus pose. Sukhasana is easy pose. Then even sitting in Swastikasana. These are a few asanas that you can look into when you are doing pranayama. Where your back and neck, basically, main thing is back neck should remain straight. And for some postures, for some breathing practices, it is also very important that your body remains stable. Okay, so in some you will find a little bit difficulty to maintain your body posture, like that the body posture remains all right. So for that you can go for the lotus pose, Padmasana, and even meditative postures like Siddhasana and Siddhyoni-asana. Siddhyoni-asana is for females, Siddhasana is for males. But I would recommend that you adopt these two asanas only after proper practice and under the guidance of a teacher. Okay, because Siddhasana and Siddhyoni-asana, these two asanas, they are in fact one of the major asanas for meditation also. However, if not done correctly, they will have adverse side effects. Same goes for each and every pranayama practice that you do. If not done correctly, they can have adverse side effects. So be very careful when you are practicing these asanas, as well as I will be guiding you in pranayama. Then also be very mindful. Do not push yourself too much when you are doing the pranayama practices. Your body should be relaxed. So another thing, posture doesn't only mean which posture, it also means how you're sitting. So body is relaxed. Entire body should always be in a state of calmness. Mind should also be relaxed. That is why we do a little bit breath work before we enter into the pranayama practices. All right. So let's come to the next point. These two things are very important. You know how they say after the yoga practice, you should not eat and bathe for a while. So next 2 points are going to be our food. Food in the sense, empty stomach. Let me write that down. Because food is a separate point. Empty stomach. So the specific timing of pranayama for a normal person, that is one of the reasons why it is early morning or at the time of sunset. This supports our normal meal system also. So when you wake up early in the morning, your stomach is empty. And for pranayama practice, it is very important that the stomach remains empty. This is very, very, again, important. Why? Because whenever we eat food, whenever we consume food, you would see that all the energy rushes towards the stomach, because at that point of time it is very important for digestion to take place. So the body leaves all the work and focuses on the digestion process. Now if all the energy rushes to your stomach and is focused on the digestion process, then practicing pranayama will not do you good. Why? Because you're already working on that energy to expand that energy, and that energy is completely focused on digestion. So neither would your digestion be all right. Okay, so even if you practice pranayama after eating something, your digestion will be impacted. Okay, so your body will not be able to digest the food properly. And again, it is best to practice pranayama with an empty stomach. So early morning or during your sunset time, we generally go for, we generally go for lunch, and after that we go for dinner. So this time in between when the sun is setting, that time we are empty stomach. It has already been 3 to 4 hours since we ate our food, and now we are going to go and directly have dinner. So this mid time is best for practicing pranayama. So in the morning you are empty stomach, there is no issue. But in the evening, make sure that there is a gap of 3 to 4 hours from your time of eating. So sometimes your classes will not be on these timings, you know. So people would have already eaten. So you have to make sure that in your instruction that you tell them clearly that 3 to 4 hours gap should be there, at least for pranayama purpose. And post practice also, let me make it clear. So 20 minutes to half an hour after your pranayam practice, you are going to eat, not before that. After you complete all your practices, 20 to 30 minutes gap should be given. Once again, because the body temperature is changed when you are doing pranayama, suddenly consuming food will not, will harm your body, because it will take the body 20 to 30 minutes to come back to the normal temperature, to come back to the normal condition. After that, you can consume food. But if you do it before that, again, it will have impact on your body. Bathing. Another thing which is very common, you will see a lot of people after gymming, they directly go for showers. It is not an advisable practice. Why? Because body temperature has already changed drastically when you go into intense workout. And again, then when you go into like go and bathe immediately, I'm saying that will suddenly change the body temperature. The same goes for pranayam. When you do pranayam practices, after that, again 20 to 30 minutes, as I have written above, 20 to 30 minutes gap should be taken till the time your body comes into relaxation, comes back to normal state, and then you can go and bathe. So you can bathe either before your practice. So before your yoga practice, like early morning, you wake up, you bathe, and then you do your practices. That is all right. Or if you want to go and bathe after your practices, it's not necessary you take a bath, because always you take a bath before your practice. If you're planning to bathe after the practice, again take a 20 to 30-minute gap. Okay. So let's move to the next point. Again, very important point, food. Now let's come to food. I hope I'm not going to fast. If I am, if you miss out on something, please unmute yourself and let me know. If you have any doubts, please unmute yourself, let me know. Okay. Food for a pranayam practitioner, very important point. So, it's both food and your yogic practice are going to go hand in hand. You cannot eat junk food and then expect yoga to, you know, uh, settle that basically. So sometimes what people do is they come for weight loss. A lot of students are going to come to you also, weight loss, or they want to deal with some disease, and they're going to come to you and you're going to say, okay, do this practice. Till then they will be like, yeah, please teach us, how to do this, how to do this. That is amazing. They are willing to learn. However, when you come to diet and you say, stop consuming this, people become very reluctant. They just say, I cannot leave my food, I cannot stop eating this. And the whole point is that unless and until your food isn't corrected, your pranayam practices will not be able to give you as much as they will be able to give you with the support of a changed diet. All right. So generally easily digestible food. Which has high pranic value. Should be consumed. I will be talking of food in the philosophy classes as well. So sattvic food. Then I will cover this. I will definitely mention sattvic food. Sattvic food has this quality of having, high pranic value and being easily digestible. So I told you in the beginning session also, everything has pranic value, and so does your food. Okay, so some foods have low pranic value or no pranic value. So suppose junk food or packed food, these things they are uh, low in pranic value. So when you consume junk food, you must have observed this whenever you go out to eat burgers and everything. You will see that that food will after eating that food, you will feel more lethargic. The food will not energize you. It will make you lethargic because it is the quality of that food, you know, because it does not have any pranic value. So you're eating something, but it's not giving you energy. And the whole point of eating food is that you obtain energy, right? That is why we eat food. So because of times changing so much, fast-paced life, junk food, fast food, these have become quite popular. However, they have low pranic value. So if you are eating junk food while you're practicing yoga, it's going to contradict. Okay? So something that is easily digestible. In India, we have this, dish called khichdi. It is just made out of, rice, dal. We call it dal, and few vegetables. You mix that together and boil them together. Add salt, haldi, and after that we just consume that. So khichdi is a very good example of sattvic food. And you will see that a lot of yoga practitioners, because of the Shat Karma practices, also the cleansing practices, also after that, there is a lot of restriction that is put on the food. So they generally go for khichdi only. So, fruits, vegetables. Vegetables without spices, adding a lot of spices. So same food can go into other categories also if you do not cook it properly. So boiled vegetables, in fact, they are very good. They have high sattvic value. And all of these natural products. So vegetarian food. Vegetarian food has high plant value. And if you look in modern terms, you can also say that go for a balanced diet. So some people will not believe in, things being sattvic or anything pranic value. They will not understand this. So ask them to go for a balanced diet, where they are making sure that all of their nutrients are being covered in the food. You will learn more and more about food in your Ayurveda classes. So do not miss those classes. That will tell you the right combination of consuming the food depending on your personality type. So we all have different personalities that will be covered in your Ayurveda class. And depending on which personality type you fall into, you are going to have a specific diet which is good for you. So again, you have to take a lot of factors into consideration when you're going into diet. Okay. So another thing which is quite important for us is that generally whenever you introduce pranayam, there is some breath control. Like I said, one of the meanings is breath control. So there is some effort that people put in. So avoid effort. Avoid effort. This is another very major point when you are going for pranayam practices. That people think that's training themselves. Even in asana practice, a lot of you will think that training yourself will give you, more flexibility. However, that is not the case. Releasing that tension from your muscles so that they can relax and go into the posture is what is going to work the best for you. Otherwise, you could have done gymnastics or you could have gone to the gym, right? If you had to push yourself too much. But these practices, whatever yoga practices that you are doing, this I'm saying for all the practices, you have to suspend effort in them. That is when you will be able to give them space to work in your body. Okay, so there is going to be a point where you are learning. So you might feel you are putting in some effort. However, this should not go for a long period of time. Do not ever exceed your capacity. And whenever you feel uncomfortable, suspend the practices. And as I told you, pranayam works on, subtle body, right? Pranamaya kosh, I told you. So this is going to have an impact on other areas as well. So if you put in effort, if you put in strain when you are doing these practices, it is going to go in a backlash because your body is not ready, your mind is not ready, but you are putting in that effort. So slowly adjust into these practices. Let's go for some very general contraindications. I will be telling you contraindications for each and every pranayama practice as well, but some general contraindications which you need to know. If somebody is, going is experiencing this, then do not make them practice. Okay. So during illness, no matter how therapeutic a pranayam is, during illness, suspend practice. Any illness, it can be any illness. When you are ill, when you are in that stage where the body is not well, you do not practice pranayam. You can go for certain pre practices. Like I said, I'm going to introduce, these are the pre practices we are going to go through. So pre practices are okay during illness, but pranayam is not advised. Again, people who have heart diseases have to be very careful. So somebody who has any heart condition has to be very careful when practicing pranayam. So make sure that you get their proper history, background of their disease when you are introducing pranayam practices. So that is one extreme condition in which you have to first check their reports, check their current condition, and very carefully you have to proceed when you introduce pranayama. Again, if somebody, yeah, any doubts?
What about breathing disorders like asthma?
See, yeah, there are certain pranayams which will help you with your asthma, and some will not help you. So I will be telling those as I introduce the pranayams.
Oh, yeah, cool.
But for heart disease, yeah, for heart disease, it's very important.
Yeah, cool.
Again, if you are introducing any pranayam practice as a therapeutic practice, just to make sure that either you have practiced it on yourself, you know that that thing is going to help, or you have consulted a yoga therapist before introducing those practices. So anyone who has a medical history, it's very important for you to take your medical history before you start the yoga classes. So this is another contraindication, that medical history for any disease, heart disease. So I told you that it's very important for very, very critical situation matters. But if anybody is going through any disease, it's very important to take their medical history first before introducing any therapeutic practices. And make sure that your source is correct for introducing the therapeutic practices. So sometimes what happens is practices go in the opposite manner, in the opposite direction, right? You have to be very, very careful, especially when you're introducing practice. Again, one very simple thing, I do not think I need to mention it, but still I'm mentioning it: no smoking. It is going to go in opposite direction, and in fact, it is going to harm you more than it will harm you when you're not doing pranayama practices, because now your system is going to be cleansed and it's going to become very sensitive. So if you smoke after all of these things, now not only are you going to, like, suppose you are at level 0 and you smoke, so you will go at -10 and it will pull you down when you practice pranayama. So you won't go up, you will go down. So avoid anything that hurts your lungs. Okay. Any doubts in any of these points? All right. Okay. So let me introduce today's practice: abdominal breathing. We do not have a lot of time left, but still. Sorry. Abdominal. Okay, so like I mentioned yesterday also, most of us are breathing in the wrong manner. So abdominal breathing is actually a part of your yogic deep breathing, which I will again be introducing in your future classes. This is a pre-practice for pranayama. Once again, it's not a pranayama. And abdominal breathing is the correct way of breathing. So in your day-to-day life, your abdominal breathing should be going on. So when we are stressed, we start breathing through the chest. So mostly people who are stressed, suffer from anxiety, you will see that they breathe through the chest. However, when we breathe through the chest, we are not providing oxygen to all the lobes of the lungs. So if, a little bit I will go into anatomy when I discuss this. So your right side has 3 lobes and left side has 2 lobes. The lung is divided into particular portions, right? But for the sake of simplicity, because we have 3 breathings, I will say 3 lobes. Okay, even though left one has 2 lobes. Okay, so the lower lobe of the lung is not oxygenated when you are breathing through the chest, and most of the people breathe through the chest. Okay, so switching to abdominal breathing will do what? It is going to oxygenate the lower lobes of the lungs. Okay. Lower portion of the lung is oxygenated when you do abdominal breathing, and it is the breathing which you will observe in children and somebody who is not stressed. So children are not stressed. I cannot say about today's children, but when I was a child, when we were children, all we had to do was play, eat, play, eat. Now these days children are getting very technologically advanced, so I cannot say this about today's children. But when you are a child, mostly you do not experience stress under a very ideal situation. You do not experience stress. So you will observe that children generally, their abdomen comes in and out when they breathe. So that should be your normal state of breathing. And actually what happens is, it doesn't mean that you do not face stress during the day. You will still face stress and you will know that your chest breathing has started, but then you will take out time to switch back to your abdominal breathing. Okay. Why? Because sometimes what happens is, when we are stressed, our sympathetic nervous system is active, right? and chest breathing goes on. But even after the stressful situation has passed, we still continue to breathe through the chest, which causes a problem. Okay, why? Because other areas of the lung do not get oxygen. So switch to abdominal breathing, and you will see that when you guys also practice abdominal breathing, you will feel very calm and peaceful after practicing it. So naturally during the day, abdominal breathing should be going on. For a few days, you will put conscious effort into this, and eventually your breath pattern will be set in a way where abdominal breathing takes place. So when we are kids, abdominal breathing is dominant. Then we come to teenage, we get a lot of stress, a lot of decisions. We mostly do chest breathing, and after that, we forget. So become a child again and start working on abdominal breathing. That is how you become a child again. Yeah. So when I say the word abdominal breathing, I do not mean that you are taking the air inside the abdomen. Okay. You are just breathing enough so that the diaphragm is pushed down. There is this dome-shaped structure which, when you expand the lungs, it goes down. Okay, so that muscle in the body, diaphragm, when you fill in the lungs properly, fill in the air inside the lungs properly, then the diaphragm moves down. When the diaphragm goes down, the abdomen comes out. Because this is the actual process that is going on. Another thing, if you are doing abdominal breathing, so you will find certain people who are doing abdominal breathing, but they're doing it opposite. So what is happening is when they inhale, their stomach goes in, and when they exhale, their stomach comes out. Again, wrong breathing pattern. What you have to do is, as you inhale, your stomach should come out, right? Because if I'm filling air in a balloon, your stomach is a balloon. So if I'm like, your lungs are in fact those balloons, but the entire concept is there is expansion. So when I fill air in the balloon, it expands, it doesn't contract, right? So if you are inhaling and your stomach is going in, that means that it is chest breathing mostly that is going on, right? Because my diaphragm is pushed up when I am inhaling and my stomach is contracting. So diaphragm is going up, which is not correct. Okay. And ideally, when I open up the balloon and let the air escape, it contracts again. So as you exhale, pull your abdomen, there is contraction in the abdomen. So this is the entire technique of abdominal breathing. In fact, as you inhale, abdomen should come out. As you exhale, abdomen should go in. This is your breathing when you are in a very relaxed state of mind also. So you will observe this thing whenever you are relaxed. This is the breathing pattern that your body switches to. We do not have a lot of time left, but let's go for a very short session of abdominal breathing. So abdominal breathing can be done while laying down or sitting up. But when you lay down in Shavasana, it is easier to connect with it, to feel the abdomen rise and fall. So whatever suits you best, you guys can go ahead and do that. If you feel like sitting, sit. If you feel like lying down, you can lie down. And place one of your hands, right or left hand, on your abdomen, because on a nature level, we are again not able to become aware of this breathing pattern. So placing the hand on the abdomen will just ensure that you are connected with the movement. So everybody come in any posture, either in a sitting posture or go into Shavasana. And let's begin our practice. So come in the posture, back is straight, eyes are closed. And just start observing your natural breath. Just connect with the natural flow of your breath. And when you feel ready, just start taking slow, long, and deep breaths. Switch to deep breathing. Relax your body with your breath. Make the body as loose as possible. Posture should remain straight, however, the body is completely relaxed. Very slowly and gently place your right or left hand as you find comfortable on your abdomen. Exhale completely. Just contract the abdomen. As you begin to inhale, allow your abdomen to expand as much as possible. As you exhale, again contract the abdomen. And continue this breathing practice. Inhale abdomen out, exhale abdomen in. With each consecutive breath, go deeper into your practice. Just continue your practice. Take one more breath. Inhale abdomen out, exhale abdomen out. You can suspend the practice. Slowly relax your right hand. After you complete this breath, you can relax the hand. Just come back to the normal breath. Do not have to change anything. Just see how you feel. If you are lying down, come in a comfortable sitting posture. Bring both legs together, turn towards your left side and come in a sitting position. If you're already sitting, make sure your back and neck is straight. And we will just rub the palms together. So join both your palms together and rub them together. Make a cup shape with your hands and then place them on the eyes, allowing your eyes to absorb the heat. One more time, join the hands together, rub them together. Keep them on the eyes. Very slowly while blinking. Open up your eyes. Start coming back. Yeah. So this was a very short session of abdominal breathing. Hopefully we will go for another session tomorrow because I already exceeded some time. So abdominal breathing has no contraindications. Everyone can practice abdominal breathing. Tomorrow I will touch up a little bit more on this and we'll go deeper into the practice. Okay. So if there are any doubts, please feel free to unmute yourself, ask me. Any doubts?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. So I'll just end the session with Om Shanti. So Om Shanti to everyone. And I will see you all tomorrow for your philosophy class. Okay. So
Namaste.
Shanti. Yeah. Namaste. And bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.